Hey guys, Mike Caggiano here, Section 8 Secrets. Hope you're all doing well. Thought I'd do a short video. I hope that's the intentions. It's short. And talk about timing of the market. I had a friend last week talk to me, and he said he was timing the market. And what I mean is he was timing it on interest rates, and he thinks they're going to go down. So he's going to wait that out. And then yesterday I had another friend talk to me about, hey, he's waiting for prices to go down, the values to go down. So he thinks that's not going to happen until mid to the end of 2024. So call it 18 to 24 months out. So he's waiting on that. And, I try to talk to them with, it not being, a frustrating discussion, but I also think how we have that training in the chapter about movers move and waiters wait. And ultimately a mover doesn't have to be good at anything at all. And a mover's a buyer. All they have to do is just buy. And if they've adopted the model, they know what properties to buy, how to buy them, why they're buying them. But that when part doesn't really matter. So the when to buy them doesn't really matter if they have all the other variables taken care of. And we can show that and illustrate that on the forecaster tool. So for today, what I want to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to kind of go through it as best I can and as quickly as I can and clearly to better articulate and just show why waiting doesn't really work and what are you waiting on all of us to figure out. Because historically, while this is coming up, while I'm doing this, historically, what we've found, what you will see is there's a correlation. Now, it's not a super strong correlation, but it's enough to be talked about between interest rates and home values. Meaning when home values drop, typically interest rates are going up. It's kind of what we're in right now. Home values are not really dropping, I wouldn't say, but they're slowing down. The acceleration, the throttle has gone from to the floor to maybe halfway down. And, maybe it will eventually revert to not even halfway down, not down at all. And maybe they're going in reverse, but I doubt it, but perhaps. And also know that there's roughly 500 different markets of real estate pockets in the United States alone. And not all those markets operate the same way. And what I mean is just because Raleigh, North Carolina is appreciating at, maybe 6% per year, doesn't mean Augusta, Maine is also appreciating at 6% per year. In fact, Augusta, Maine could be depreciating and going down. So always be wary of what market you're investing in. And that's why I say the why and the how and what you're doing is more important than the when. It's not always about timing, if ever is it about timing. So let me look here. So back on this example, and these are just averages, guys. So this is the historical average. So interest rates, although 7%, which we've got right here, that's actually low. That's actually lower than the average, which is like 7.8% over a 45-year span, which I like to look at averages over a greater length of time to get a better understanding of what we're in right now. And history tends to repeat itself too. So when you have this kind of holistic macro perspective of looking at it, you're probably going into it with a better wherewithal of all the variables happening and not buying into the hype, so to speak, and people scaring us and saying, interest rates are so high and home values are ridiculously high. When we look at values too, you can look at inflation over a 45-year span as well. And you're going to find that home values have really, the appreciation is very low compared to other items, compared to gasoline, compared to milk, compared to just like cheese, things like that. But we're not going to go into that for this purpose of this meeting right now, this call. But let's look at here. So guys, so 7%, it's going to elicit $1,250 in rent. This is a 3-bedroom unit in a location that I've targeted actually, and one that is legitimately real. So let's say 100,000 for sake of ease for going through this as an example. The HOA is 135. And so this is bringing in 22% cash on cash. Pretty darn good deal, guys. All things considered, interest rates are high, values are still up. This is a pretty darn good deal. So let's keep these averages in here for this equation, for this illustration, what I want to illustrate. So 5% annual rent increase, 4% appreciation. That's over a 50-year span of data, and it's ranging anywhere between 3 and 8% of which is home value appreciation. So I'm going to say 4%, kind of conservative. Annual cost increase of 1%, maintenance cost also 5%, and those are that's actually points for me personally, from what I found for the target homes that we're purchasing, that answering the how and the why you're purchasing these properties. That's where these numbers come from, and not the whens. And that's what we're looking at now, is the when. So in this scenario, if you waited, if this scenario was right, and and this is accurate as of today, you're waiting for, I guess, let's call it the list price. So an individual says, hey, I'm waiting because home values are going to drop. Well, look over here, guys. So the cumulative, so that's unrealized and realized gains. So you got your cash on cash, your cash flow itself is cash flow positive 450. That equates to 5,400 in the first year. In the second year, that's $6,000. But then you also have the unrealized gains that we talked about in the training, which is the principal pay down and the appreciation alone. So just those two. So you have a cumulative, you combine all this and you got $10,200. Okay. So even if they wanted to wait the first year alone, you must know something that nobody else knows, first of all. And my friends, as far as I'm aware, they don't know of any genies. I wish I had a genie. I don't, they don't either. So even if they were right, so the best case scenario is they waited 12 months. Most of them are talking about waiting a little longer. So 18 to 24 months. So let's look at year two. Year two, cumulatively, you would have earned between realized and unrealized $21,000. That means this would have to be one of the most historic property value drops ever. And it would have to drop over 21% because it's $100,000. So to make up, that's where I'm getting the 21%. So you have to offset the missed gains of 21% just to be at where you're at today. And that's also assuming the interest rates don't go up. Because typically, like I just said earlier, historically, there is a correlation between interest rates and home values. And it's typically a negative correlation, meaning when interest rates go up, home values typically go down. When home values go down, interest rates are going up. Kind of where we're in right now, right, guys? So let's think about home values aren't necessarily going down. They're slowing down, though. So that's what's going on. Interest rates are going up, so people aren't selling as much. They don't want to, they can't sell. They're like, how am I going to get a bigger, a smaller mortgage that's going to cost me more because the interest rates have tripled, which historically is, I believe, unprecedented. So that in itself kind of says, hey, let's take a look, let's pump the brakes. And that's what I'm doing on this video. So in this scenario, you would have made back your down payment in less than 3 years. This is saying in year three, on your 36th month, you would have made $33,000. It only cost you $24,000. So anyway, guys, I'm keeping this crisp, keeping it kind of short. I think I painted a pretty clear picture here, guys. So even if you thought you knew, your genie told you prices are they'd have to plummet 21%. And then in year two, you can buy. And even then, that's only saying, thank God you had your genie. What did you actually save? You didn't save anything. Because if it doesn't plummet greater than 21%, you're not actually saving anything at all. So it has to actually drop more than 21%. So you don't know what you're timing. And then you got to also hope that the genie knew about interest rates as well. Because if the interest rate goes up, then that causes this to be even worse for your timing. You'd have to time it out even further if interest rates go up. So if interest rates go up, you'd have to put in here a lower interest rate here to show what does that mean. So if interest rates go up by half a percentile, and even that's now you're at 22%, right? So anyway, point is, guys, I'm not sure what we're timing, because don't be that person that's really good at that one thing, which is timing and waiting, because waiting and timing don't work. I don't know anyone that's timed anything, because when you look at it this way, from the macro view of all the variables being waiting on, I don't know. Basically, I'm not following why you would wait when you look at the numbers themselves. So that's what I wanted to just kind of hit on a short video here, guys. And we have other people that have mentioned this to me, not just friend Eric last week and a friend of mine this week. It's pretty common, but I get it. I mean, you can be a little hesitant, but don't over complicate it and make yourself super concerned, and then you're not redeploying your funds. And what else are you doing, guys? Because if you have enough for the down payment and you're waiting, and when you're waiting, you just have it in savings, inflation's eroding that away anyway. So unless the genie tells you somewhere else to put your money where it's a safe haven, but it also is offsetting by inflation. So you need to at least call it 10%, right? You need to be putting that money aside somewhere that you're gaining 10% with no risk. Because remember, you're waiting because you want zero risk. if you're willing to take a little risk, go for it, because if it's cash flow positive anyway, guys, the risk is significantly lessened because you're already gaining that in cash flow and you're gaining it in principal pay down. So it's offsetting. It would have to drop, like I said in my example here, right? Your market, which is unprecedented, it needs to drop 21% for it to have worked out. And even then, that's only because now you're even with me, the buyer. And then you got to hope that that property is even on the market, because that's what's the hardest thing for me. What I find is the biggest challenge for me is acquisition, is finding that next unit. So if I found that next unit and then I waited because I said, hey, my genie told me it's going to drop, I might have to tell, Ahmed, my genie, and say, hey, bud, I'm sorry, but you're going to be mad at me. I'm buying anyway, because I'm worried that unit's not going to be there in 20 months, 24 months. So anyway, guys, just food for thought there. When you are waiting, just break it down and try to sort out, what exactly are you waiting on? And is it the best decision? Is my money parked in a spot while I wait that's benefiting me? So think about that, guys. Hope to see you on the inside of Section 8. Happy investing, guys. Have a great day.